Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Had to make sure that it wasn't going to be problematic. All right. So, how you doing tonight, Rick?
I am doing good.
All right. So we are going to obviously going to wait a few minutes to give people a chance to come in before we do any introductions or anything like that. Let's see. How was your week this last week?
It's been pretty good. Well, today I did some minor um, updates on my website,
All right.
so that's good. Just saying that I'm going to be at a Comic Con at the end of the month and
Right.
switching it
Updating in
over.
terms of like the information you're providing for like filling out your calendar of events and all that aspect, right?
Yeah. Well, I just put that on the main page, and also, about Fund My Comic took down the about be Indiegogo and Kickstarter
Yeah.
since they're both over.
Yeah.
I gotta learn to update my page more often.
Hmm. I kind of know that a little bit because sometimes some things I can be a little procrastinating too. So, ah, for those who may be in the chat,
Hey,
Jr.
Jr.
Let's see what Jr. Hail Xena, bless us all. Fight xenophobia with the loyal officers down with the down with the psychiatrist. Yeah, down with the sickness. Down with the sickness. I don't know if you ever heard that song. That's kind of a rock song, hard rock song. But anyways,
I don't think I've heard it.
yeah. Anyways, for those in the chat, first off, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here. That'd be appreciated. Also, anything we talk about grabs your attention. Feel free to
Comment?
comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best. Don't you just hate that when you're doing something like that and your mind just kind of like
Goes blank on you?
yeah,
Yeah.
that that's kind of the thing with me. So
And it's something that you say all the time, and for the life of you, you can't remember.
or your brain just freezes for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. So, anyways, yeah, and I asked you about the. So, as far as you know, you guys are going to be doing it this Monday then. The
Yeah,
draw.
as far as I know, yeah, we'll be doing the draw along over on Chris Telemalovich's channel, Hero Shack's channel. Well,
I
actually, it's
wonder.
called Chris.
I know. Chris has said he works as an IT guy for his local school district or something like that. I wonder if he's got the week off here, spring break this week or not. Hmm.
Well, March break would have been last month.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then, of course, this Easter weekend, he might have tomorrow off.
Hmm.
Some places do the Monday, some don't.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Well, my local school district just went on spring break like this past Friday, so they're off this week where I live. So
Well, okay. Maybe it's a bit. I thought it would be the same in the States as here for March break. And
well,
when
I
we get
think a lot of it. Well, some people will do the week before Easter and on Easter with Monday, and then some school districts
yeah,
will start the Friday of Good Friday.
yeah.
They both work.
Well, I know here, at least in Canada, or at least in Ontario, March break is always usually about in the middle of March. Then, of course, there is reading week for colleges and stuff like that, or what's
Reading
called
week.
uh, what I've heard of is called reading week. Anyways, I where they, I guess you're supposed you get a week off from school, college, school
Mhm.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I guess you're supposed to be reading, catching up, or whatever. Okay, no, Canada is mostly March break. U.S. has spring break, March or April. Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I just assumed it was the same time, March
Yeah.
break, spring break.
Yeah. Well, April in Japan is pretty. Japan. April in Japan is usually the the month where the spring anime releases start up, as I've mentioned before. So, um,
Wow.
yeah, there is something I guess I wanted to ask you, but I'll wait till after the show because it is something about something that happened in Canada recently here. I want to get your take on, but it's not niche related. But
Yeah. Uh,
you probably just from me saying that you may have some idea what I'm going to probably ask you about.
yes, not really, because I pay attention to the news, but I don't at the same time because a lot of it's pathetic.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know, but
Probably the
I did.
closest.
There was something I want to get your take on, but I'll wait till after the show because, as I said, I want to keep this more niche related and not the show niche related,
Would
not get.
it be Bill C-11, the censorship bill?
Yeah, the idea that you can't protest, within 100 feet of a not.
That's something different than what
Uh,
I was thinking. But yeah,
well, it's still on.
that's coming up. That's more just I think in Ontario because one city did it. Something similar in Calgary did it.
Yeah, but anyways, as I said, I want to.
Yeah.
I'll ask you later on that, just because. Well, we got three people in here now, so well, Rick, I know we've been talking already for a while here, but you want to? I'm sure everybody already knows who you are, but would you like to introduce yourself and share any links, to
Uh,
anything?
well, I am of course Rick Piper of Cross Comics. Um, I do comic books, Christian comic books. I guess I'll put the link to my website in the thing in a second here. I just gotta bring up the chat for anybody that might like. I'm going to be in North York for Comic Con on the 29th of April. I'm hoping to get out maybe further out in Canada besides Ontario.
And there's, of course, Rick's link if you guys want to go check that out. Um, all right, so let's see. All right, so um, I would like to have more people in before I start because there probably are a couple of things I could probably go over that I was telling you about earlier, but I would like to. But then we just chitter chatter a little longer until we do get more people in. Or
Yeah.
should I just go ahead or should I just go ahead and go to one of the articles? Um, because I can at least.
Sometimes it's hard to tell because you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know I probably asked this earlier, but I'll ask you again. What did you do today?
Um, Today, well, I went to church today and
Mm-hmm.
then came home, called my dad, wished him a happy Easter, talked to him for like 5 or 10 minutes. Um, then watched some Love Boat, played some Minecraft, uh, did a little bit on my website. I was saying, and oh yeah, happy Easter to anybody out there as well
Yeah.
that's watching.
Yeah. All right. So
So
let's see.
not a whole lot, um, you know.
All right.
Oh, and I started working on a new trading card, one for Snowdrift that'll explore, do what her power set is. Like levels, knowledge and all that.
Hmm.
Although I just got the back of the thing, I haven't done the exact things, what everything is.
All right. Well, Jr. is saying I'm your main audience. I don't mind some opening chit chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, I'm hoping that you can get some more people in here before we start chatting it up. Just or before we get into anything, topical. Just because. Um, I just check to see. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I think I said I was gonna do it Monday. I think I ended up doing it Tuesday. Jr. And hopefully, I just put. I had a stamp here for the envelope that I put them in, so I'm hoping it goes to you and doesn't come back to me.
Hey, Rick, why don't you promote yourself for a moment? Because I do have to step away from the computer. I'll be right back.
Uh huh. Let me show. Could you email me 300? Yeah, I should be able to do that. No problem. Oh, did you get a chance to download and read any of the comics? Uh, do video capture device. So do. There's the size. There's the size of the envelope I put them in. I cut some. I cut some foam board to the size of it, put them in, and then. Oh, no problem, no problem. It's just I just always love getting feedback, about what people think about the comics and all that. Yeah, so I cut it to the size, for the go in the envelope and then two pieces and then stuck the cards in between. So, they're safe. This is bubbles in there, so they're safe that way and pretty sure fairly waterproof and all that. So I'm just hoping, like I said, the biggest thing for me is I had some stamps hanging around that I got from somebody. I just put a stamp on it, hoping it doesn't come back to me. But with the size and all that, I don't think it should. So,
All right. And all right. So, anyways, okay. So we're coming up. We're just past the 13-minute mark. So, guess we'll just start going over some stuff here. From more, So one of the articles I figured we could talk a little bit about here is the one I was talking to you about earlier about Ethan Van Sciver roasting Keith Franklin here. So let's see. Let me just pull that up. Um, just again. Now, granted, I may not read the entire article again. I did this, of course, myself, but we might just highlight some things. You got some of the Peter Van Sciver roasts writer T. Franklin in DC for a three-way involving Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and Vixen in recent issue of Legion of Bats. That's the name of the book. Article was by J.B. Augustine from the 6 comic books. So the question, who is this for, is asked a lot around here. But it's also asked frequently in the Twitter post of the artist and former DC employee, Ethan Van Sciver. He knows his old workplace has seen better days, especially when he was there, and that nowadays there is no shortage of cringe-inducing incidents in the pages of new releases. So
well, I must say, who's it for? Well, guys usually like, you know, would like maybe a three-way between these
Well,
three.
yeah. Well, here's my
But
stuff.
depends on how they do it, of
Yeah,
course.
I think part of it too is that okay, if we're thinking that traditionally, even when we've been looking at the golden age stuff, it's not always the case.
Yeah,
But we tend to traditionally think that comic books are directed towards kids. Now, as Metal pointed out when we were talking about it the other night, you know, kids back, let's say in the golden age, were a lot more mature than they are now. So yeah, some of the material back in those days was even might have been considered a little bit more adult than maybe the kids of today should be considered exposed to, but they were fine for the time they
yeah.
were.
JR says lesbian three ways have a large audience.
Mm-hmm.
I can believe that.
Yeah, but I think a
Well,
lot of it too. Yeah, I think a lot of it too, though, as pointing out, it's like if it's meant for kids, and then this could
yeah,
be considered a grooming
yeah.
thing.
But somehow, even though this is a quote unquote three way, I don't think they're going to write it where any guy really even wants to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in the last 2 months, Van Sciver found one more scene so appalling he had to share it with his followers. In the second case of weirdness to hit a Batman adjacent book since the Joker got pregnant and vomited a mini me clone of himself, Poison Ivy has a torrid fling with girlfriend Harley Quinn that ropes in Vixen.
Yeah.
DC and saying something like ropes in Vixen. That's just funny considering
Yeah.
DC's history. You go all the way back to Wonder
Yeah.
Woman early days.
Yeah. It's just of all the characters to, bring in, I wouldn't think Vixen would want to be one of them because they have, in a lot of ways, I think at times, sexualized Vixen out there. Heck, the name in itself lends itself to that, I believe. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but she's you know been romantically involved with many um men, or maybe not many men, but a few we know, and I think it's no, that's in
Well, I
um
know in Justice League Unlimited, they actually did, kind of show Vixen and John Stewart, Green Lantern
yeah,
John Stewart, as an
yeah. I
item for a while there.
I was thinking that, but then I was thinking he was with Hawk Woman, Hawk Girl, whatever. In
Well,
that,
okay, yeah. In the first in Justice League, they had towards the end of that series had had started kind of well, actually no, it was like towards the latter half of that series that they were kind of involved. They had, of course, a very kind of telling, touching moment in the episode, the one off Christmas special,
yeah.
Comforting Joy, and then they separated when after the events of Starcrossed. You know, but um, of course, of those who denounce them, 95% really like them, but just won't admit it.
That is,
Well,
of
I don't know.
course, the
I mean,
three way.
I do know one that Ethan's a Ethan is a married man from what I understand. So I don't.
No, I think he's just talking about three ways, and just because you're married doesn't necessarily mean you don't like the idea of it. It's
Hmm.
just, you might not look at it because you are a married man, you know,
Yeah,
and don't want to do anything to cheat on your wife or whatever.
yeah, to be unfaithful. Yeah, but yeah. So, anyways, it's gonna continue. Let's see. This occurs in a daydream at the beginning of Harley Quinn animated series Legion of Bats number 5. Now this is, I guess, from the comic adaptation of the TV series.
Yeah, I've only watched a couple episodes of that. It wasn't for me.
A satirical spin-off of the adult HBO Max cartoon, but the humor is lost with most readers as well as the comic arts pro. Quote, DC Comics must be terrified of T. Franklin, he wrote before describing her as an obese, black, disabled, lesbian sex worker. And I think that was his
Y-
way of trying to touch all the alphabet there. You
Yeah,
know, you know, yeah, but
the Alphabet Mafia.
yeah. And then I guess here's the panel here, and then there's I guess the full tweet right there from Ethan, and then
Yeah.
you a quinfecta of victimhood. Imagine their submissive urination as she has to be paid for a script featuring Ivy, Harley, and Vixen in a lesbian three-way singing about um, a word that often gets put in front of a cat.
Yeah.
Gross and sad. Uh,
Uh, but even just looking at this, the art, I can't see it all super well. The art in it is not even the best, in my opinion.
mm,
Yeah, there's different styles of art. I get it, but for something DC,
mm-hmm,
it's very bland.
mm, yeah.
I would
Well, it doesn't
say.
seem as bright either. I mean, let's see. Well, here's JR saying so. My Twitter bio includes no turfs, no swerves,
Okay,
which I have no
I've
idea what that even means. But
I think I've heard the terms before, but I forget what they mean myself too.
yeah. Well, I mean, in the way they use color here too. I mean, they don't use. I don't think they use the color too well. I mean, as compared to how they used color back in the golden age,
Yeah,
the
well,
really light.
that's part of what I'm saying. With the coloring, the drawings. There's not a lot of shading in that going on in this.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, I get maybe it's because of the animation style that they're trying to keep it with, but still, it's like like if I'm paying $4 or $5 for this, it's not really something that gonna want to pay $4 or $5 every month for. Just the art is it's mediocre at best to me.
mm, yeah.
You know, yeah, it's probably slightly better than what I can do. I'll admit that. But still, it's
I had to look up swerves. It's no sex worker exclusionary feminist. Oh,
okay.
all right. Let's see. Oh, what am I doing? Anyways, all right. So as we continue to look at this, oh, and wow, I just noticed this too.
Well,
Check the. Okay, so check the date of that tweet right there. You see it?
February 14th, Valentine's Day.
Isn't that kind of ironic that he'd be talking about this on Valentine's Day?
Hey, Shadowhawk, how are you?
Shadowhawk here.
Yeah, in the chat.
All right. Shadowhawk, you have a link if you'd like to join us. You're more than welcome to come in the studio if you'd like. So, hail Mike and Rick. Hi, JRXer. Yeah, we're going over an article where they're talking about
Uh,
you know Ethan and Skyver roasting DC and T. Franklin for putting a three-way in a Batman book.
Good
So,
stuff from him at the moment. Yeah, I was just about to ask how your dinner went because we saw your comment earlier.
him at the moment. Oh. All right. So as always, guys, of course, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Anyways, we continue on here. As soon as I can learn to hit the right tab. All right, so quinfecta of victimhood. Van Sciver added as he described the scene. "Quote: Imagine there's well, okay, we're not gonna reread all that. There's no need to reread. We just read the whole thing. Um,
Posing that scenario.
Many will wonder who can save DC after stuff like this makes it to print, which, as we've noted again and again, happens all the time. Then Skyver, however, doesn't see that happening, as he maintains no one cares about the comics or DC, not even Warner Discovery. Quote, he, David Zaslav, doesn't care about the comics, EBS tweeted. Nobody does, least of all DC itself. Well, I would say that is kind of true because if you think about it, it's like comics aren't, now granted, the Batman titles that seem to be the Batman titles that seem to be the only ones actually are selling right now. According at least according to Yellow Flash.
or selling decently good. Anyways, the other ones are selling a little, but
Well, one of the
not
other articles I
barely
read this
making a
week,
profit.
is that they had actually first off that the latest Robin series, Tim Drake, the one that
Yeah,
that
that
one got
they made him buy.
canceled. That one got canceled, and they even deleted a tweet, where
Yeah,
they had reduced Tim Drake to being a as they said, internet scrolling troll or something like that.
yeah.
There's an article on.
I get you might want to put representation of characters in. Um, okay, fine, but you're starting to oversaturate the representation.
Yeah.
They're not that big of the populate representation of the population of what you got them.
You know,
Unless you're dealing
you
with
make a very interesting point there, Rick. In response to what the point you're making there, this is my thought on that. My thought is they're trying to make up for all the years that they weren't represented or weren't represented well. You know,
yeah,
um,
well,
it's like they're trying to since they feel that now they have the big enough megaphone or what have you to where they can now shove it down everybody's throats and
yeah, well,
don't expect anybody to say, hey, no, you're not going to shove that down my throat. You try to shove that down my throat, I'm going to knock down your you know what. you
yeah.
know
Well, DC and Marvel, as being the companies that they are, have always had a big enough megaphone to do crap like this. But their customers didn't want it, and they still most of their customers still don't want it,
hmm
which you can tell by the sales.
hmm Yep.
You know, you know, they're
I know
big enough.
Yellow Flash has talked about that a lot too on his
You know,
channel too.
you know, the term "go woke, go broke." For the most part, it's true, especially when depending on what you're dealing with. Because I was watching a video by Lauren Southern. She's a Christian, not Christian, Canadian commentator, or
Uh-huh.
says stuff on the. She's saying it's not necessarily true because some companies are so big that you know, you affect them in one area, it doesn't really, you know,
Have the cascade effect.
yeah, like maybe Warner Brothers itself, if DC goes defunct, they don't care, you know,
hmm
they're
Well,
big
yeah,
enough
but
not to
because
care,
they
but
just, they just and I know Yellow Flash has talked about this too. They just want the property so they can make movies with it. That's their only.
yeah,
That's the only thing they care about. If
yeah,
the
but
if
they,
the comics succeed, they look at that as being a bonus. But if they fail, oh
yeah,
well, we can just because
yeah,
they just want.
but what they forget, unfortunately, for the movies to succeed, the comics need to succeed because the people watching that are going to go watch it, who are the big majority, are the people into in the comics. And if there's nobody reading the comics, nobody's going to care about the characters when they're on screen, or very few. Thus, you won't make your money from these movies.
Hmm.
You know, it's just like Lee.
Yeah.
Wait, you know, there's a few people that care about my characters right now, but not enough for me to go make a movie and make money off of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
People
mean,
got to care about your characters, and if you make it so they don't care, then you know
yeah, I'm just checking. All right.
you screw yourself over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just a little
Yeah,
distracted. I'm like, because I think I thought I just got a message from Metal, I guess I just missed it. Uh, all right. So, anyways, um, some, as they often do, view this latest depiction of Harley and Ivy with a +1 as no big deal and tried to call Van Sciver on being too easily triggered by a comic as these defenders of DC's modern content also do quite a bit. Well, yeah, but the thing now, granted, I don't,
yeah,
going back to a point you were just making a little while ago. I don't. It's not that people have anything against Harley and Ivy,
yeah.
you know, in a lesbian relationship. I think it's more that they're like trying to push it too much as a norm when it's not. You know, it's like
Uh,
I think that's kind of like they're
well,
overdoing it as he's oversaturated. Whoa, that's not true, Rick. Comics sell 30,000 to at most 100,000. Movies need 10 or 10 or 100 times that number to be profitable.
what for the movie? Comic fans altogether couldn't make a profitable movie. True, just in general, them themselves. But if you have a comic fan going out there and saying the movie is shit, you know, then that's going to affect a lot of people
Okay,
who
Rick,
aren't comic.
you can use another word other than shit.
Yeah, well, it gets the point across. But
Yeah.
if you have comic fans, you know, going out there saying the movie's crap shit, however you want to say it, then they're not gonna. The other people aren't gonna go see it. And if that movie is shit, then your comic fans, yes, there's only 30,000, you know, 30,000 buyers of comics or whatever, maybe more, maybe less. But it's the comic people that'll go see it two or three times if it's good
Hmm.
and pay for it. Yeah, you're right. You need a lot more than, you know, that 30,000. I agree with that, you know. But, you know, the comic fans, if you get the comic fans on board on your movies, they're going to help you promote it,
Hmm.
or they will help de- uh, demote it
Hmm.
at the same time, you know. You
Well,
know, if
I mean, if you think about it, you know, look at what happened with the Velma series, right? You
yeah,
know,
or
initially they were a lot of people a lot when you know a lot of people tuned out after a while, but you know, um,
yeah,
but a
yeah.
lot of those same people were who were hate watching it were helping to demote it in a way. You know, they
Yeah.
were promoting it in one way by watching it, but then they were demoting it by just telling everybody how
Well,
much of a
or just look a couple years ago with the Sonic movie. You know, when they first showed Sonic and he looked like shit, it got so much, you know, thing that they said, "Oh crap, we better change this. Otherwise, we're not going to make money." And now it made money.
Mhm.
You know, I think it would run along the same lines as movies. Look at what's happened with, you know, they are putting it out there, the Ezra Miller one, but they very um much debate it. And then of course there's the Batgirl movie, which none of us have seen, but it
Mhm.
got a screening and everybody said it was shit or 90% or whatever. And now they're because they don't think it's going to make money, the project is scrapped. Nobody's going to it's not going to see the light of day,
Yeah.
you know. And I don't know how many comic fans were in that, audience that would have seen the screening of Batgirl, but
Right. Well, I think
and
in
how many
the Flash
what,
is, from what I understand, the the film was
yeah.
more by the time it was going to be released, it was pretty much ready to be released, and that's why they let it.
Yeah.
It's like even if it was they try to the whole point of releasing it was to at least try to make some of the money back. They probably
Yeah.
knew they weren't gonna. They probably knew they weren't going to make a significant
Yeah.
amount of the money back from all that, but
Yeah.
it was done. It was like, well, do we take the zero here or do we release it and at least try to
Yeah.
get some of that money back? It's like
Yeah.
it's one of those, an excuse the expression here, but it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situations.
Yeah. And then I've heard Marvel, and I'm not sure what they're going to do, is doing some restructuring for Phase 4 and 5. They're instead of bringing out so many of the TV shows, and
Mhm.
crappy, they're supposed to be reducing it so they can concentrate it. Whether they'll take all the cringe and stuff out of it, that's another story. Whether they've gotten the proper message in restructuring to do these movies, quote unquote,
Yeah.
better, I don't know, you know,
Basically, just
and then
trying to consolidate them all.
yeah,
Um,
because they're going to be bringing out less movies a year and apparently doing less of the TV share.
Flash has
Yeah,
been delayed. What, 2 years? Yeah,
yeah. Although I have seen trailers for it now, even in theaters, so it's coming within like the next year. And
yeah.
I saw well, there's the Blue Beetle one. I didn't. I saw the trailer for that, and I'm like, they got him as an adult, Jamie Reyes or however you pronounce his last
Jaime
name.
Reyes.
Yeah, and it's like,
So
uh,
they're basing it on the Jaime Reyes version of Blue Beetle, not like
yeah,
headquarters.
I think, yeah, no,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
not
because I guess that does make sense because Jaime Reyes is the current Blue Beetle now, even
yeah,
though they
and
still in the
it
comics
has
and
been for
the
about
beginning
15
still as a
years.
teenager. But as you know, because we cover we've read some of the stories on our channel here. The original Blue Beetle, of course, was Dan Garrett, and
Yeah,
then Ted Cord was the Silver Age Blue Beetle for DC. But
yeah,
and that character, the Blue Beetle character originally started out with Fox, with Fox publication, Fox
yeah,
Feature Syndicate, and then kind of went back and forth between them and Holyoke, and then back to Fox, and then Charlton, I think, picked him up for a bit, and then
yeah,
DC got him. So he's been a
yeah.
very well traveled character since the 30s, since he
Uh,
debuted in Mystery Men
but
#1.
yeah, but I guess all said, if there's not somebody that wants these movies being made, you know,
Hmm.
and yes, the comic fans aren't going to make it profitable by themselves, but I
Right.
think they're an integral part of making them profitable.
Right.
You know, they won't do it by themselves, but if they're not liking it, video game fans or whatever, you know, it's not gonna. You might get some.
It's like, and as they were asking it, well, who is this for? Kind of thing at the beginning of this article, like it's knowing your audience, right? It's knowing
Yeah,
your, you know,
yeah.
it's
I'm
knowing.
sure. I'm
Oh,
sure you'll get normies that'll watch it and like it because they don't know the history stuff and all that. Like us comic fans do.
mm-hmm,
I watch a channel about a reaction video, and this one girl, she's going through all the Marvel movies now. The she's went through all the a bunch of the Star Wars stuff. Her reaction to it isn't the same as ours because we know all the history and all that. We've been
mm-hmm.
with it a long time. It's a lot more near dear to her. She doesn't see all the stupidity and all the
Mhm.
woke stuff necessarily. Oh,
Right.
I'm not sure how her thing on politics. She just reacts to, or different things. She just reacts to watching a movie, what she thinks of it based on you know being a
On her
normie or what we.
on her experience
Anyway,
with the movie. On her experience with the movie.
yeah, just as a movie, with no
With
back
no
to
background understanding of like where the characters came from or anything like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
or
So
or very little.
yeah. Anyways, getting back to the article here.
Yeah, we really went
Well,
off on a tangent there.
well, that's okay though. That's part of what
Yeah,
the show's all about, right? Just
yeah,
getting into these conversations. Um, some, as they often do, view the latest depiction of Harley and Ivy with a. Oh, okay, we already read that part. With a GIF with a GIF, he reminded them of Cyberfrog's. Oh,
success despite
oh
his
yeah, yeah.
worst
I was just seeing if
the
I think I did read the whole prior paragraph, so that's why I was.
yeah. The
Cyberfrog's
only
success
the only
despite his
the
work detractors.
I don't want to take anything away from Cyberfrog. Yes, it raised him over $1 million, but he's got to remember his books are selling for 25, $50 a pop, where DC is selling theirs for five, $4 or $5 a pop. You know.
Actually, more like $5 to $7.
Okay, but you get my point.
Yeah.
You're paying 3, 4 times the amount for his book at least than a regular comic. Yeah, it's bigger than a regular comic too. It might be 2 or 3 times the size. So maybe I should be comparing it to something that's as big, So,
Well, yeah.
but
Well, yeah. But then what you have to then go is, you know, okay. So if you're gonna make that point about because he's selling his books for more, that's why he's making more money. So then you have to look at, then you have to go and look at how many units they sold then, because
yeah,
you know you can't necessarily go by amount because if like okay, so he sold $1 million worth of comic books, right?
yeah,
And you're saying that he sold them at like $25 a comic. Is that where you're going?
yeah, somewhere around there. Might be
So
a little
like
bit
a
more,
million,
might be a
a
little
million
less.
into 25. That's what? That's the four.
Yeah,
So millions one and three zeros. That'd be like 4 and 6 zeros. So that's wait, no. A million is 1 and 6 zeros. So 25 of that. So
yeah,
that'd be like
but you've
40.
also
That'd
got
be
to
like 40,000. That'd be like he sold 40,000 copies. Okay.
maybe, and it's probably less because you got to remember part of that money is shipping as well.
Yeah. But well, let's just so 40,000 about 40,000 copies. We'll just say that just
We'll say
and we'll
between
say,
30
and
and
we say that
40,000.
so and then how much let's say if okay, so if they make $1 million in sales about at about on average about $6 a copy.
Say
Let's say
say 5 just because it's an easier number.
okay, $5 a copy. That'd be what 200 a million, so 200 200,000 there. So yeah, so they are selling more It would seem they're selling more copies. He may be making more money, but then we're comparing again. I don't know the actual numbers,
Yeah.
okay,
And,
but
and like I said, you would probably more put Ethan's number is probably a little closer to 30,000 because like I said, part of that money is for shipping. So, yeah,
mhm,
the book is $25 and then shipping on top of that,
mhm,
you know. So, then that puts it up to, like 30 or 40 or whatever.
yeah. Let's see. Outside the art, which is panned by many, Van Sciver was grilled about what makes the comic so inappropriate. Okay, so Rick, you're not the only one So I guess a lot of people were complaining about the art. Apparently, um, he responded that comics don't need foul language or explicit sexuality to be good, and elaborated that medium should, quote, remain mostly wholesome juvenile literature that non perverted adults can enjoy as well, rather than primitive and vulgar material.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, the idea of knowing your audience. And like today they're asking, like, who is this for? And then, if we're thinking that, okay, if comics are supposed to be made for kids, is this really you know, is this now? Granted, today's parents are different from but like I'm sure a lot of parents from our generation, they saw their kid reading something like this, they'd be grabbing that comic out of the kid's hand and probably
Yeah.
throwing it in the fireplace while the
Yeah.
fireplace was lit.
Yeah. Um, but the thing is too, we have we have graphic violence in these things too. So, who are they made for? They're sort of made for kids, but they're also made for the adults that are continuing to read them,
Mhm.
from when they were kids. So,
Oh yeah, and granted,
there's a balance that you need.
not to say that there hasn't been adult material. I mean, even going back to the Golden Age, like one of the stories we'll read at some point in the future
Yeah.
when I get to that point, that I can tell you just from my previous studies of DC, there was actually a two-part story in Flash comics. It was in the Hawkman feature where a female, it was implied. I don't think they actually showed it actually happening or
Yeah.
what have you, but it was somewhat, well, I don't even think it actually happened, but it was implied, like there was a
Uh,
suggestion that a female character was going to get SA'd or even worse.
yeah. Well, I remember a few years ago, probably 10, maybe 15, something like that. I'm not sure whether it was during which thing arc it was during or exactly when, but I think it was about who's somebody's wife, and it was involving Dr. Light and the fact that
Oh
Zatanna
yeah,
had been.
that was I think back around the time of like in Identity Crisis. I think
Yeah,
I know what you're
yeah,
where Dr.
where
Light had. Let's see if I remember correctly.
and the male Dr. Light, not the female Dr.
Yeah,
Light.
I know who you're talking about.
That he
Arthur
had,
Light.
I think it was so one of
It
the.
was Sue Dibney.
Yeah, I was
It-
thinking it might have been her, but then I was like that he had had his way with her without her consent. We'll say.
right. Right. It was Stu Dibney. I remember kind of reading about that back then. I didn't read the actual comic, but I do remember reading about that.
Yeah,
But then also they have also implied that Arthur Light may have been gay as well at one point.
yeah.
He was
Well,
like he was supposedly involved with the because okay, now we had to understand. I think there was something like 4 or 5 Doctor Lights in DC history there.
yeah.
Um, the very first one was back in the Golden Age and was kind of an arch nemesis of Doctor Midnight, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Um, but Arthur Light is the third one, and then the female hero one, Kimiyo Hoshi, she's the and we have somebody here. As soon as I can click him on. Hey Tim.
Hey, Timmy.
Hey, I I had to have my sign up fixed so people can sign up for my campaign in July, only on Fund My Comics, July 29th.
Well, since you're here, Tim, if you'd like to give a quick little intro and then share any links, go for it.
All right, hold on. I am Timothy Olson. I am the creator of Melvin, which is going to be funding on fundmycomic.com in July 29th, Pacific Daytime.
But
All
in the
right.
meantime, they can sign up for it.
Yes, they can sign up since it's fixed. So hold on, let me get that link. Hold on,
All right.
stupid scrolling down campaign website. Here we go. Hold on. Continue talking about whatever it is you were talking about while I get this
Well, yeah,
link.
we're going over this article mounting in the comics about Ethan Van Sciver roasting DC and T. Franklin for putting a three-way in a Batman title.
are we
I covered it on
are,
my
we-
own channel a couple days, obviously a couple days ago. But
are we
figured I'd
talking
do it.
about a three-way that I'm thinking of when I hear the word three-way?
A woman three-way, all women.
Okay, that sounds great.
Rick, you want to catch Tim up on what we're talking about with this article?
Well, we've been talking about a bunch of stuff, but the article is just Ethan is like basically, is this really appropriate to put in a comic, especially that kids can get involved with, as
Wait
he's
a minute. Wait a minute. Hold the freaking phone. Since comic books cover all ages, do you remember the Violator miniseries from Image Comics? They literally
yeah,
had. They
yeah.
literally had. Go ahead.
But let's admit, Image
I
is
was about
probably
to.
a
I wasn't
little
done.
bit more adult oriented compared to,
Well,
and by
edgier.
adult,
Yeah.
by adult I don't mean X-rated, but
So
just
it wasn't grown up. It was an adult when the Joker stripped Barbara Gordon of her clothes, took pictures of her, kidnapped
yeah,
Commissioner Gordon, put him in bondage gear, and then made him look at photos of his bleeding half naked daughter
yeah,
as he went
Well,
down
yeah,
this.
we've been talking about those kind of depictions in comics too.
yeah.
Rick,
Well, yeah, there's that. I was just talking about the Dr. Light Sue Digby thing,
Dibney, Dibney,
Digny thing where
elongated man's wife.
she Dr. Light, the evil version, had his way with her without her consent.
Hmm. Now here's Tim's link. I just put it in the chat for everybody if you guys want to go check that out. All right. Yeah, and I'd also mentioned that even back in the golden age, there were some times when they stretched the boundaries, but you
Yeah,
know,
But that was a different time and a different place, though. I mean,
yeah,
you're talking about a time when TV shows were not allowed to show a husband and wife who are married, by the way, sleeping in the same bed.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, silly.
But
We don't go back further to the Victorian period when they put piano skirts on piano legs because they
well,
thought men were going to get aroused. Come
okay.
on.
Here's another funny thing. Kind of a little side note to what we're talking about a little bit here, because it just happened because I know that when Rick is on with me this Friday, we're gonna be covering DC and some of the. And I was just thinking about Sandman's situation, the Golden Age Sandman. For that time period, the depiction of him and Diane Belmont for that time period was considered kind of controversial because they were not actually married, but they were actually the way that they were portrayed. It was kind of more of a common law kind of situation, common law marriage.
Right.
They were not actually married, but in the comics they were depicted as if they were more like common law.
The question is, did it benefit the story, or was it just gratuitous filler for no reason? I mean, did it benefit the story at all?
yeah. Well, there's the thing: is how well was it written, and if if it goes back up, the art isn't even that good in my opinion.
Oh, you want me to go back up to show the?
Yeah, just show him the couple pages that they show. That's the way he can maybe see. No, that's not right there.
And the art, and mind you, the art for this has been, they were saying has been panned too. What do you think of the art here, Tim?
It's I mean, is that the gist of it right there?
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
I don't know what the page is before or after. So about what happened, this. So
The way it cuts to her at a desk, it made it sound like she was fantasizing.
Yeah, well, it
Well,
does
yeah,
say
that's
that.
basically what they opened it up with, like in a daydream kind of thing.
Okay, so I don't see what the issue with this is.
Well, I think what Ethan is saying, that the general idea is if well, one of the points Rick was making about it earlier is the oversaturation of diversity. That's one of the things that was one of the things that Rick had talked about. Um, Also, if now, Grant, I know we I think even you mentioned it when you came in. Comics are considered generally made for all audiences, but if they are more generally directed towards kids, is this the kind of material that's appropriate for a kid to be
Yeah.
reading?
I
You
mean,
know,
there are. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say we have to remember this is based off HBO's adult comic or
animated
animated.
series,
Yeah,
adult animated series.
Okay,
yeah,
then so what's the issue? I
yeah.
mean, I don't think either
Then,
Van Skyver's gay or anything, is he?
yeah. I
Who
can
wouldn't
get
want to see it see
get.
some?
I haven't read the comic, so I can get some of his points in a basic sense. But in some ways, you're right. Like or as we're talking here, it's like we've had worse in comics. You know,
Hmm.
is it just
Well, okay,
because it's
I'll reread. I don't know if this will make if this will. Yeah, now, mind also for matter of perspective here, Ethan is a married man who is a Christian. So to understand maybe his a little bit more about his perspective from where he may be coming from. Okay, just so you know, that's why I want to throw that
yeah.
out there.
And
But
Shadowhawk says, "Hail Timothy Olsen."
Oh, hey,
um,
what up? What up, Shadowhawk?
DC Comics must be terrified of T. Franklin, an obese, black, disabled, lesbian sex worker, a quinfecta of victimhood. Imagine their submissive urination as she asks to be paid for a script featuring Ivy, Harley, and Vixen in a lesbian three-way singing about the woman's genitalia. Gross and sad.
Gross
So
and oh, that sounds I don't know what. See that whole thing about them singing about that. What does that have to do with the story? Is that supposed to be
Yeah,
funny? See that'd be my issue. Is not so much they having a three way, but the lame attempt at humor.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
and I think in fact I think we were actually getting to the part, I guess. See,
yeah,
here it says, some, as they often do, view this latest depiction of Harley and Ivy with a plus one as no big deal, and tried to call Van Skyver on being too easily triggered by a comic, as these defenders of DC's modern content also do quite a bit. With a GIF, he reminded them of cyber. Okay, so let me go
yeah.
back.
We were a bit further down than that.
Well, no, I was going back up because I think. Okay, gross.
And
I mean, I'm trying to find. Okay, so many will wonder who can save DC after stuff like this makes it to print. Okay, yeah, okay. Um, he was pointing out that a lot of people are being turned off by this. You know, um,
yeah,
After all they've done, I kind of feel like I don't even really care anymore. It's
yeah,
like, yeah, okay, I'm not surprised that they're doing something like that.
yeah. The main question is why are they doing it, and is it you know fitting for the story, and does it add to the story or take away from the
okay,
story?
okay. Here's the actual paragraph that we were talking about that we are getting to.
Mm,
Outside the art, which is panned by many, Van Sciver was grilled about what makes the comic so inappropriate. He responded that comics don't need foul language or explicit sexuality to be good, and elaborated that elaborated the medium should, quote, remain mostly wholesome juvenile literature that non perverted adults can enjoy as well, unquote, rather than, quote, primitive and vulgar. So I think what he's saying is that,
That's kind of hypocritical, really.
Yeah.
well,
Well,
I think,
I don't know how much explicit sexuality Cyberfrog has in it. I got one book. It doesn't have a lot.
Does it have a lot of
Uh,
violence?
definitely violent.
Well, then
Well,
how's
that's
how
well,
how
maybe
is
not.
that how is that wholesome?
Yeah.
Melvin has. I don't claim to be a moral authority, but Melvin's got a lot of violence in it. Hell,
Yeah.
it's got a
I don't think
scene.
he's talking as much about the violence aspect of it. I think he's more specifically focusing on the sexuality. In other words, let me ask you this, Tim. Um, would you basically sell your soul? Would you sell your soul
Well,
if you thought you could sell more
Heavy
comics?
Metal magazine, and I'm done.
Would you put an explicit sex act, even suggesting it? Would you put that in your comic if you meant? I think that's where he's
Heavy
going with it.
Metal magazine, which is a comic book magazine, which has extreme violence and extreme sex.
yeah, but it is meant for adults.
Yes, but it's also a comic.
Yeah.
So why is
Uh,
it? I mean, so why does it need to be quote unquote wholesome juvenile literature when there's Heavy Metal magazine,
I
which is a
think he's
comic book
more.
magazine?
I think he's more meaning like DC Marvel, the ones that most kids might be reading.
It's 2023. Yep, it's right. And yes, last year was 2022. So what's your point?
But okay, I can agree with the no foul language. Doesn't necessarily need foul language, or at least not written out. You could do the
Wait, show it
the
again.
at symbol and all that stuff.
Well, and you guys know how I feel about the idea of foul language. I think, generally speaking, foul language is more show. I mean, that's one of the. If you guys remember, that's one of the things I always like to point out with the older comics is how they didn't. Will Eisner never felt the need to use
Right,
language.
Yeah.
but look what
No.
kind of characters they had. They had a character called Slant Eyes, and they had a black sidekick character that looked like an actual monkey. So yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they went on stereotypes of how to do
Yeah,
stuff
yeah, they're
back then. But the explicit sexuality, maybe not explicit, but obviously there's been sexuality in comics, for almost since the birth of them.
Wonder Woman.
It's just how you depict it, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's violence and sexuality that actually, there's there's the appropriate amount, and then there's just kind of just slathering it on there to where it's just like, okay, that's just too much.
It's like gratuitous fan service.
Where's the storyline, right? You don't want to take too much away from the storyline, but you do
Yeah.
if you're doing a violent story, you want to be able to show violence.
It's like where does your where does your comic go from just being a comic to a porn comic,
Well,
with the
J.R. Exner was pointing out here. Yeah, American entertainment has promoted massive mountains of violence, has hang-ups over sex. Well, I mean,
I believe a South Park.
One of the things I pointed out earlier, you go back even to the Golden Age, because one of those stories that we'll probably read a little further down the line when we get to it, there was a story in Flash's, Volume 1, 6, and 7, in which the female character that Hawkman was working with, there was a Hawkman feature. It was implied the bad guy was going to try to essay her. I don't think they actually had him essay her, but they implied it. And of course, in the '80s, in the late '80s, there was Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters, where they actually did depict Black Canary being orked.
Orked. I had a point there, but you made me forget.
JR says, "Are you afraid your kids will pick up a gun or have a three-way?" Well,
yes. I remember there was a South Park episode where they covered this topic where the kids bought these weapons and they had to sneak past the adults, right? Because there's like this I guess there was a public event, and so Cartman removes his clothes and says, "I told you, Balrog has a lot of powers," and so he's pretending to be invisible, and he's like right in front of the parents as they're sneaking, and it's on television. And he's pretending like he's sneaking through the crowd, and everyone's like looking right at him. Next thing you know, there's a public meeting, and they weren't concerned about the weapons that the kids had. They were concerned about the fact that Cartman snuck in front of the camera, or thought he was sneaking in front of the camera naked. And so the moral of the whole episode was that people cared more about sex stuff than they actually did about violence.
Hmm.
If anybody remembers that episode, they're pretending to
I
be
don't
like.
because I haven't watched.
I've
much
never
so far.
watched South Park. So
Do you think I could actually get away with sharing a clip and that proves my point?
Well, the only reason I don't think Mike would is he doesn't want anything effective for his channel.
Oh, right, okay. I just the clip proves my point way better
Yeah.
than.
Yeah. Well, we get the idea. It's it's in a lot of ways like sometimes I've heard in a sermon where the pastor says like shit, and more people are concerned about the fact that I just said shit than the actual message that I'm teaching.
Oh, it's also to
Yeah.
me. It's very hypocritical about like, story. Wanting a certain stories and want it to be like it was in the '90s or whatever. And the '90s was full of freaking violence. I mean, Spawn issue 13. Actually, I could probably show that. Hold on, let me get that book.
Yeah. But yeah. Well, hopefully most if there's a gun around for your kid to pick up, you've taught them some gun safety. Hopefully, you're not just leaving a gun out willy nilly where they can get at it. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do to.
But generally speaking,
Again, you can teach them, some good things for sex, what to do, what not to do, that sort of, when to do it.
yeah, but I think generally speaking, I think most people would agree that.
Sorry, I meant Youngblood 10, and I'm not gonna get that out. But there was literally a scene where Spawn blows his own head off. And the reason why I keep bringing up violence is because sex and violence and entertainment go kind of like they're like
Almost
fries,
hand in hand, yeah.
burgers and fries, right?
Yeah.
But
But I think overall, Tim, outside of maybe being aware of their body parts and what their body parts do, I don't really think anybody thinks that kids should even be remotely thinking about sex or being exposed to.
well, you know what?
Outside of their genitalia and what they're used for, like for urination and stuff like that.
Well, you know what? If they don't like it, here's an idea. Don't buy it.
Yeah.
Well, I
You
don't
don't want your kids being exposed to that. Don't buy it then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
There's
then what about
other...
if the kid buys it without the parents' consent? Then what?
That's the parents' right to take it away from them. But my point is,
Yeah.
I'm not going to censor myself for somebody else. I'm not your baby. I'm not your kid's babysitter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is that, parents should be a little bit more parental involved.
I think the like one of the first lines we read from this article was, "Well, who is this for?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly,
That's fine.
And as I sort of said, it is based off of the HBO
adult
mature. We'll say
animated show.
mature audience.
If anything, the only thing DC would be required to do if there's mature content in the book is to put something on the cover. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why video games. I mean, that's why video games have
labels
ratings.
and books have
Parental advisory.
Yes, we do have something called freedom of speech. You don't like my speech? Pardon my French, and I'm not aiming this at anybody. If you don't like my speech, then piss off.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
And I don't really necessarily think that Ethan is outright calling for
Uh-oh.
censorship of this either. I think what he's just saying is that this this may be part of the reason why these books aren't selling as well, because it's only really attracting a small percentage of the audience. But he probably just feels that this is not necessarily appropriate for a general comic audience. That's
Yeah.
well,
Well, I think what Mike means is early teens, and the key word there is shouldn't be, or keywords shouldn't be thinking. We should
oh, please,
have their
yeah,
own
yeah.
mind on the thing. Whether they are or not, that's a totally different
Well,
story.
if you're, I remember when I was 13, I was already thinking about that stuff. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say kids who are kids who are still in single digits should not be thinking about
Well, that's the parents'
beyond
responsibility,
the
isn't
fact
it?
that
Yeah.
their genitalia is what the names of their genitalia are, and the fact they use them to go potty with. I don't really think
Right.
the idea of kids in single digits engaging in acts shouldn't even that should not even be a discussion.
Yeah. But
Again,
then
that's the
again,
parents. The
and
parents.
again,
The
it
parents.
should be this comic shouldn't even be in their hands, too.
Exactly.
So
That's why and it's kind of hard for a kid in the single digits to buy something behind their parents' back when most kids that was in single digits don't have a job. They have to kind of run everything by their parents, and if they're getting them and
well,
having them, that's their
well,
parents' fault, not the company's fault.
Well, a lot of kids might have an allowance at that point, depending on how much it is. Depends on how much they can spend.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, and
some
But
I say single digit because that's the most obvious, but I would say even some people might argue those who are under the age of puberty of 13. But then, as we often know, sometimes for some kids, puberty starts earlier than 13. So,
yeah,
but
well,
but even in
yeah,
even in that, it
comic books
shouldn't be.
generally speak to those entering their teen years because it's got everything it's got somebody who's able to punch people through walls. It's got these scantily clad women. It's geared towards people in their teens up to their
yeah.
20s and possibly their 40s if they've been around the game long enough. So look, the way I see it is freedom of speech. If you don't believe in freedom of speech, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Anyways, let's see what more of this article says.
I don't know if Ethan's outright calling for full on censorship here. I
Yeah,
just think he's more thinking that they
yeah.
should be making the choice themselves not to put this out there. But
Yeah.
I don't think he's actually calling for outright censorship though.
No, I don't think he is. I'm just Ethan
Yeah.
doesn't sound like the guy
He,
that does
he
that, but I'm just
he's just
saying,
saying, is this a wise choice to even be out there?
yeah. But if you're having like violence in your comic book, then why are you concerned about sexual stuff in comic books too? So let's not be hypocritical here.
Yeah. Anyways, let's see what more of this article says, if anything.
Okay.
Right. Well,
I
I
guess
mean,
it,
hey guys, I always welcome the
Yeah,
conversation because the conversation, a lot can come from a lot of good comes from conversations like this, right?
yeah,
Where
yeah.
there's differing viewpoints and
oh
different
yeah.
interpretations out there, and everybody, it's good mental exercise, good mental exercise and critical
Uh,
thinking.
and I think
You
you
know?
missed it a little bit, just up a little bit, Mike.
I
Right
think.
there. Yes, I want superhero. Just down a little bit.
Oh.
Right there. I
Okay,
think
well,
that's
I think this could be covered, but okay, I guess if you want me to, okay, so Ian Fish here was replying to
well, no,
Ethan.
no, not that. Below that, where it says after replying to Ian Fisher, says yes, I want superhero comics to remain mostly wholesome and juvenile literature.
Yeah, we actually did read that part
No,
though.
Yeah,
we didn't.
again,
We
again.
hadn't read that yet. We just
He's
got to the end of vulgar
yeah.
material.
He
Yeah, but
says
you see,
that, but his books are full of
that was
violence.
in
So
this
how can he?
paragraph up here, Rick.
Yeah.
Jeez.
See right here, it says right here.
No, but that
Um,
seems to be a response because he says about thing, and he says, "Yes, I want comics.
In other words, I think what they're doing, they're showing us the actual tweets of the exchanges,
Yeah,
but they're putting
yeah, some
portions
of
of the response in the text article here. So
yeah. Well, in this part, you have Ethan saying that they should be wholesome and juvenile, and then just down a little bit is I think Ian's response saying, "Yes, I want superhero comics to remain wholesome and juvenile literature, not non-perverted adults can enjoy as well." Because that seems like it's not any part of the tweets or whatever.
See
okay, so
Maybe I'm
that bothers me because his books are full of violence. How can
yeah.
you say you want wholesome? See, that
Yeah.
doesn't make any
Well,
sense to me.
I think that I could be wrong. I think that's Ethan reply, not
no,
Ian replying to Ethan,
Ian.
not Ethan replying to Ian.
So Ian's
Okay,
saying he wants it
okay,
wholesome.
so here's the exchange here that you're talking about,
I'm
Rick. So,
confused.
so
Okay.
Ian is replying to Ethan here. I mean, why not? Do you want the art form to stay frozen forever as it was when you were a kid? I can understand why a corporate suit would want that, but why would a lover of the art form? Okay, so that was Ian's response to Ethan on Twitter, and then this is Ethan's response to Ian
Oh,
Fish right here. This is what we read in the previous paragraph.
Well, here's a
okay.
question
Yes,
though.
I want a
Oh,
superhero comic to remain mostly wholesome juvenile literature that non-perverted adults can enjoy as well. All right,
oh,
go.
okay.
Here's a
I see.
question. Here's a question.
My
Now,
bad. Sorry for
it's all good,
confusing
man. It's all
things.
good. Uh, is he being sarcastic? Because sometimes you can be sarcastic and it doesn't translate because you're not indicating sarcasm.
Well, I don't know because again we're basing our observations from reading the article. Since we didn't watch the actual stream or anything where he was doing this, or we don't know. We don't have access to look at his face and look at his facial expressions to
Yeah.
see
And
see
these
what
are just
see what
all
his body
tweets,
language is
not even.
telling.
These are tweets, not him actually physically saying something that you can actually hear him say. Although he might have did a thing on it too, a video on it. I don't know.
Okay, so this is, I guess, the last paragraph of the article here. So maybe that means comic books won't, quote unquote, evolve, but we know what their evolutionary backslide has done to the sales of mainstream publishers. You probably did not pick up the Harley Quinn issue in question and probably are of like mind with Ethan Van Sciver. Tell us your reactions to the pages he shared in this thread down below. So,
Well, I mean, here's my thought. If he's being sarcastic, it doesn't translate in text, unless this is from an excerpt from a stream. Then I'd have to see the stream. Two, if he's being serious, then that's pretty hypocritical coming from the fact that his books are not wholesome either because they're full of violence. So you can't say you want wholesome books if it makes you a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Say
well,
what you mean and mean what you
that is an
say.
interesting point, but then again, how would you then define wholesome then?
Well, is it wholesome to show a character ripping off another character's head or a character committing suicide?
I think most people would agree probably not.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending upon the context,
Is
though.
it wholesome to see a character punch his fist through a mobster's head and then use his body as a shield?
Yeah, well, I don't think
Again,
Ethan's
depending
Is
doing
upon
that
that
the
in
considered?
his comic.
context.
Is that yes? But
He
it's
has giant bees or hornets, whatever you want to call them,
uh-huh.
attacking people, possibly sucking them dry or
Wait.
ripping
Is
them
it is
apart.
it is it wholesome to show a dead body drip with filled with honey dripping out of her nose? Because I know that was one panel in a Cyber Frog book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some people might say that's taking a little too far, but then
Right, but is it wholesome?
now, Grant, I get your point that sex and violence often link together.
Right.
However, though, they still are two separate things, you
Yeah.
know, and
But
it depends upon context. I mean, it depends upon the context of the story too, you know.
right, it
Um,
does.
Yeah.
But then again, we're the species that like to back in our history like to watch people die for real. So are we any different from people back then?
Yeah.
So, I mean, good conversation there, guys.
Yeah. Oh, that article took like up an hour.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah, which is good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just, you know, hey,
yeah, I
it,
mean,
it may it got some content. We got some talking in the chat about it. Not a lot, but some, which is good. And sure, welcome any more comments about the articles from people, in the chat.
yeah, I mean, Metal's here. Hey, Metal.
You missed our wonderful debate.
I'm not sure
I,
whether it
I,
was a
I was I was
debate
kind of
so
I
much.
was kind of reviewing with the panel one of the articles I covered this last week about Ethan Van Sciver roasting T. Franklin over putting a three-way in the Harley Quinn the animated series Legion of Bats comic story. So that's what we're talking about.
That doesn't surprise me at all that happened.
Yeah. So here's a question. This is because this is my standing point. I don't know if Ethan was being sarcastic, but he said, "Yes, I want comics to remain wholesome and juvenile." Do you think that it's wholesome to see that they also show violence in your comic book as well?
Well, gratuitous violence, we'll say.
Gratuitous violence.
I think he was exaggerating for comedic humor because it is Ethan.
Right.
He's a lot looser than he comes off, but he does definitely want comics to be generally aimed at kids.
Right. But his Cyberfrog's chock full, and this is according to Rick, because I haven't really read. I've seen panels of the book. But according to Rick, the comic books are chock full of violence. Yes.
I wouldn't say it's got violence in it. I might even say some gratuitous violence in it, but I
Yes.
wouldn't I wouldn't say, at least in the first one, a lot, because the first one was like I'm not sure where it is in my
Yeah.
comics.
Well,
Give it to me.
that's my point. Is like you can't say that you want comic books to be wholesome and have them just chock full of like. Because I remember when I
Do
came
you
of
think the
age.
Bible's wholesome?
Well, no, the
Yeah.
Bible has lots of violence. I know that. But I remember like I had Violator #1, and they had a panel where the Violator punches through some mobster's head and uses his body as a shield. Or he's being chased by like a vigilante who fires a rocket at the crowd, and you see bodies flying everywhere because he's trying to kill Violator. Young Blood and 10 actually had Chapel commit suicide.
Hey, guys, give me a sec. Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
I know you just stood up. It's probably if you're going to stand up, I know I've had people have to remind me of this too from time to time. You might want to turn off your camera for a moment while you're standing up. Just
Yeah.
to avoid any inadvertent shots of stuff that people don't need to see.
Rick's like, deal with it, world, deal with it.
I just looking through my one set of comics
Listen,
here.
Rick
Yeah, I know.
has the
I mean,
body of a
I get
god.
it.
Unfortunately,
I've
it's
done
Buddha.
that too. I've got up, and but if you guys, I don't know, Rick, you and Tim may have been here when that happened, but there was a time when way back. Well, actually, it happened on RJ's stream when RJ was still doing the show here, where I got up and I inadvertently mooned everybody because I was looking for comments like you are right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's when you tell people you want the world to kiss your ass.
Uh,
I was just looking for my Cyberfrog comic. I actually got two of them.
Somewhere.
So why do you weigh in on that, Metal? I'm curious to see what you think because you always have an
I don't
interesting.
know. My favorite story was that time that Samson took the bone of a donkey's jaw and killed 100 enemy combatants with that. I thought that was a pretty wholesome story.
Actually, it was more. It was 1,000. Not
Yeah, it was
100.
1,000. Yes,
Wow, that's actually pretty
yeah.
impressive for with a.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're going to start talking about some of the more risque stories of the Bible, we can also throw in Diana and Tamar in there too.
Well, I mean, there's also other books like the poem Beowulf, where not Beowulf, Beowulf. Dang it, been around this community too long. So Beowulf, where Grindel kills like 13 guys in his hand, and then like Beowulf rips Grindel's arm off and beats him to death with it.
Well, I mean, and we've even talked about, I've even mentioned it with some of the Golden Age comics, where sometimes now because the general idea is that yes, I think there is an overall perception by most people that comics should be a medium that's more directed towards kids or a younger audience, to say the least. And
Well, those people are
and,
stupid.
and maybe okay, hold on, Tim, hold on, okay. And that's the general perception. But as even we've seen from when we've been looking at Golden Age comics, that's not always the case.
Yeah,
Um,
take Marvel Comics #1, Namor,
yeah,
straight
I
up
mean,
villain.
I mean, and I've mentioned the story from like I think it was Flash 6 and 7 about the female FBI officer that he's working with, where they were making the suggestion that the bad guy was gonna SA her,
Listen,
but
I think actually,
but
in general, sex is fine in comics. You just can't show it. Like you can imply it, you can talk about it or whatever, because you're probably aiming at like preteens teams a lot, and they're
Heavy
gonna
Metal.
cover the subjects. You just can't show anything. That's the line you can't cross.
Well, I mean, Metal. Is there a magazine called Heavy Metal with comics that are like
that's a
Oh,
magazine.
heavy metal is definitely
You
aimed at
keep,
adults, and that's fine.
Yeah, but that's a comic
Heavy
still.
Metal magazine. Therein lies an inherent problem with your example there, because that's a magazine. Magazines have different standards than a comic book does.
Yes,
If we're
that's
talking about
magazines
Ethan's argument, Ethan
generally
is talking about floppies specifically containing characters that were traditionally targeted at a younger audience, right? So he wouldn't even probably mind heavy metal, but he cares when you start taking DC characters who are aimed at youth and
right.
start putting all this stuff in there.
Well, then how do you explain Killing Joke?
I'm just going off of Ethan's argument. I don't necessarily agree with him.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, you do have to look at the comics target audience, and heavy metal is definitely not intended
Like
for
we could look at the cartoon too. Harley Quinn's target audience isn't even kids. It's like
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's actually like a what's it? The
well,
TV
as
rating
as
is
the
something
article,
adult
as
MA.
was stated in the article, the comic is based on the adult animated series.
Yeah, and I believe the series is rated MA for mature audiences only.
Yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't seem like he really has a point. It's like one of those things on the internet where somebody gets mad for no reason, and even the reasons sound kind of phony.
A point he might have a minor point, but it's a little misguided based on who the comic is most likely for, because of what it's based off of. He didn't think his argument well through.
Well,
in fact, I think if he's consistent, he should have
Rick, because Rick, you were with me when I first started reading that article. They even said that in the very first sentence, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those where you scratch your head and wonder, who is this for? So I mean,
but at the same time, I don't think any of us are watching that series either.
No,
I also don't
not
think
at all.
Ethan thinks most of his arguments through. He gets a lot off of stirring the pot, so he's always just involved. Whether he has to have an opinion right away to get involved, because that's what grows his audience. I really don't think he thinks most of his arguments through.
Yeah, that's probably
not
true.
really, no. But I mean, but there's a lot of people out there that are like that. That like comic books should be like this one type of way, and you can't think outside that. There, you can't evolve an idea, or
Well, I think you can also blame Marvel and DC for that originally, even though more as of late they've been trying to expand outside of that again. But their past has
they're
kind
not
of
very
restricted
good at
that.
it.
But unlike other comic, I guess we could say fields, regions, and stuff, most of them have age ratings built in, and the American comic system doesn't really have that so much.
Right.
Yeah, the American comic system, we don't have like Japan, they have like the shonen and seinen, so like you look at that and you already know the age rating just from that. You don't have that as much here. You could have like a black label and stuff like that, but you don't
They
have
did
age
for a
ratings put.
while.
Yeah, for a while, but then you have to look at like the comics code and stuff. Might even give you this misunderstanding that it's like, oh well, this is definitely a kid's appropriate book because that's what they were trying to go for. We've kind of shot ourselves in the foot a lot historically for
Yes.
branching outside of that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and heck, we know
okay.
we also know, like Penthouse and that have put comics in their thing. So,
Yeah,
Oh
well,
yeah,
that's definitely without question for
yeah,
adults, not for
yeah,
kids. My point is,
you know,
my point
so,
about heavy metal is a comic. It's a magazine, but it still has comics in it, though.
yeah, but I also
yeah,
don't think. Let's try to steelman the argument. I don't think heavy metal falls into the arguments category because it's very distinctly an adult magazine, right? Like you
yeah,
wouldn't confuse it. You actually probably
Right.
wouldn't even put it on a shelf within reach of a kid, right?
yeah.
Right. Right.
While
Right.
if you were a store putting up a Batman comic and you just don't know that much about this particular the other Batman
You
comic.
see?
Oh, oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, I just said he was kind of metal was kind of glitching a bit. I don't know. I just think if you're gonna have like violence and sex in your book, it has to pertain to the story and not just thrown in there for no reason whatsoever. It's kind of like watching a movie and there's a scene in there that why would they put that in there? That
Yeah,
does nothing to do with the movie at all.
I think we need an audience rating system. I don't think it needs to be mandatory, but I think people
You're glitching
turns
up.
off that it. Yeah, it's probably just my connection, but I think it really helps
It
sell when you have rating systems because people like,
right.
oh, adult, I'm the target audience for this. I will buy it. Kid, my kid's the target audience for it. I will buy it. It tends to help in every
That
region.
would be very responsible. I would be actually for that because putting like explicit this or a warning label does not actually stop the sales of like things that are explicit. It actually increases them.
yeah,
Um,
for people that shouldn't be buying them too. But even with the rating system, it can do that too
I'll
because
give you an example, Rick. In the world of music, when they put the Tipper Gore stickers on record labels, those records actually skyrocketed in sales.
oh yeah, I believe you because the people that don't want them go out and try and buy them any way that they can.
Yeah, it because one thing Americans don't like being told what to do is what we can and cannot have.
Yeah. Oh, that's anybody. That's
Well, yeah, I
people in
know, but
general.
I
That's human. That's not just America. That's a human response.
Yeah, I
yeah.
believe that's actually covered in the very first book of the Bible.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yes. Well, no, I think it's the
I'm
second.
I'm sure it is.
It's the well.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
you said the
Genesis
first.
too, but I'm talking about Genesis as a book, not about
Yeah,
the
yeah. I
individual
was just
parts. Yeah.
realizing you said book, not chapter. So.
Oh, you're probably talking about the fruit of
The fruit
of
of
the knowledge.
knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wonder if it'd make a good fruit salad.
Yeah. Well, anyways, speaking of some vintage classic comics, you guys know Metal was my co-host this past Friday when we were going over we were going over a couple titles from Quality Comics, Smash Comics Volume 1 Number 4 and Feature Comics Volume 1 Number 26, which of course included Espionage featuring Black X. Let's see, Invisible Hood, and of course everybody's favorite Captain Napkin Face, Brian O'Brien, the Clock.
Was
So
it
Who
Black X
has
or wasn't it
the
Black
most
Ace?
Irish name ever?
yeah. Okay, so it went back and it goes back and forth. I think overall he's known as Black X, but for that story and for a few when they first moved him from Feature Comics to Smash Comics, he was known as Black Ace for a while. But Black X is technically his actual code name. Anyways,
Uh,
so Metal, you want to share your views on what we read from last Friday? Give your overall impressions and stuff like that.
I mean, they were good comics. I was familiar with a couple of the names. I'm not super familiar with like all of this feature and smash stuff, but I've read excerpts and stuff. I was familiar with at least two of the characters, both Black X and the Clock. Those two I was familiar with, not so much everyone else, but I had fun. They were fun comics. I always like reading good old comics. They told very short, sweet, and concise adventures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you did Metal did a very good job with the female voices too. I'll tell you that much right now. Um, very very good. Voicing Madame Doom. The arch nemesis, and as we were pointing out, as I was pointing out, you had a few characters like that where you'd have you'd have the hero, and then you'd have a female antagonist, and there was some kind of implied romantic tension there.
Yeah. Well, a very good one that's known for a lot, been known for years. Catwoman and Batman.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll be looking at one of the Batman story this Friday when you're with me. When we go, as one of the comics we'll be covering will be Detective Comics number 33. The Batman story, Dirigible of Doom, that does have a flashback feature to his origin.
Here's a question: what issue of Detective Comics did it fully become Batman?
What do you mean?
Like Batman was always like in the beginning of of Detective Comics was like a story and like a whole bunch of stories. When did it completely become just Batman?
When did he become featured Batman?
Yeah, featured Batman.
Yeah.
And there was no other extra stories.
I'm not sure.
Okay, when it was like Batman and maybe only one or two backups. That happened probably in the Silver Age, probably like the 60s, because the thing is that in the Golden Age, as you know, there were anthologies, and the anthology model stayed well into like the late 40s and early. Now, granted, they would dwindle down at the very beginning of comic, even before Superman was introduced and the concept of the superhero comic was started. There were like the very first comic that we covered, from like 33 to 35. They were like anthologies that were like, again, 64, 68 pages, where you had like 28 to 32 features. They were more or less serials, and they were started out as like 1 to 2 pages a feature. Then as time went on, then it got down to where it was only like 20 features with that were only 2 or 3 pages at a time, to where we're at now with some of the more slice of life type comics that have more reprint stuff, like United Features, like Dell, and kind of like Quality is probably one of the mixed anthologies where you have reprints and original stories. But where you had the reprints, you still had about 12, maybe about 10 to 12 or 13 features, where you'd have maybe 3 to 5 pages a feature. Okay, whereas like a lot of the more like superhero anthologies that were coming out, or action adventure, more themed anthologies were coming out, you may have had like 7 or 8 features that would on average about 7 or 8 pages on average, I'd say. But where Batman, Superman, when they basically became the one feature and then one backup, that was in the 60s. Now, Batman and Superman are the lead features at this point where they're at now. Batman did, Superman was the lead feature almost. What I mean by lead feature, of course, is so the way that they set up these anthologies, what we're reading right now, your lead feature was your first story. That was your lead feature. Your primary backup feature, your secondary feature, was the last story of the book. And then you'd have a whole bunch of intermediate features, like, for example, in Action Comics. Superman was the first story, Zatara was the last story. They were like the first and second, and then the third most popular character, Tex Thompson, was like somewhere in the middle of the book. And then you had some other like little features. You had like Morgan, and they would still, you'd have you'd have Superman, you'd have Zatara as a magician, and then you'd have Tex Thompson, who was kind of more of a plainclothes Playboy type adventurer. And then you had other features like Pep Morgan, who was kind of the Jim Thorpe of comics in a way. And then you have like a reprint of the like Marco Polo stories or whatever. It's like, and Batman pretty much the same thing. In Detective Comics at those points, Batman was your lead feature. Slam Bradley was your secondary feature, and some of your features that would pop up in between would include like Speed Saunders and Crimson Avenger. But about the time period where they got down to the point where like detective and action became feature books as opposed to like anthologies, where they just have the one feature and then one backup. That was probably at the earliest late 50s, but most definitely it was by the 60s you were starting to see, okay, the book coming down to 2 or 3 features a book.
Yeah. Well, I think it also depended on the number of pages in the book. As we know, most comic books right now are between 20 and 24 pages, which is usually just a feature character.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. The page count too, because the page count went down too. So the Golden Age started out with 64 pages. Then eventually they were doing just 48 pages, and then now I think in total, not just the one feature, but in total.
Oh yeah, by comparison, Golden Age books were mags.
What was that?
Yeah.
I said by comparison, Golden Age books were mags.
Yeah. Well, in fact, if you remember, they're often called. A lot of them, they weren't called comic books; they were called comic magazines.
Yeah. And they came out of the same industry as we were talking about on Friday.
Yeah.
I just realized something. I totally forgot from our earlier conversation. That would have been a better example than Heavy Metal Magazine. Batman killing people. Remember that one panel when he snapped that guy's neck by doing like a.
Batman actually used to kill basically everyone. I think the Joker was the first recurring villain, or it was him or somebody else.
Well, in a lot of ways, in some of those
character
stories,
called Dr.
Batman
Death.
did not necessarily directly kill. Like for example, his very first story, he didn't actually kill the guy. That, granted, he was chasing him, and some people would argue he caused the guy to die, but he did not directly kill him. It's not like he threw the guy into the vat. The guy fell into the vat, because he was trying to get away from Batman.
But people used to die all the time in old comics, but there's also before the Authority too. So that changed a lot of things.
Tales from the Crypt. I forgot that one. That would have been a better example too.
Yeah.
In fact, like there's a story where they this one guy poisoned his cleats and killed a teammate, a baseball player on the opposite team. So they killed him, ripped his body apart, and used his body parts as to play a twisted game of baseball. So
but again, who is Tales of the Crypt? If I understand it, was probably more
really popular with the kids,
not young kids.
Yes, it was. It was very popular. It's the reason why they had a hearing on comics. But kids really liked Tales from the Crypt and Walk of Fear and Vault of. Just saying.
Well, kids really like excessively violent stuff. Doesn't mean they should have it, but that's up to the parent, really, at the end of the day.
Exactly. But anyway, moving on to the next topic. Those are just examples I could have brought up. And
yeah, well, I mean, we've had some good conversations here, though. We're now like at a quarter to
10.
Yeah, 10 your time. Like I think it'd be 6:45 my time. So
Quarter to the hour, we'll say.
Yeah,
quarter to
I'm
the
just
hour.
like that's why I really like having ratings systems of some sort, as long as it's opt-in from the industry and not forced on them.
Yeah,
Just
that
because
makes
everything
sense.
should be up to the parents. It doesn't stop anything, but
Totally.
like parents should have the right to let their kid read what they want them to read, and if they don't want them reading adult things, they shouldn't. But if they want to let them, that's still up to them.
It's on them. That's on them.
Mhm. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, I think we'll start to wrap up here. Had some good conversations tonight. So now, before we do close out, it's time for that. It's time for that one segment I do every night, which is, well, in this case, since this is the weekend edition, this weekend in. You want to finish that saying off, Rick?
Niche history.
Yep.
It's almost like get ready. Let's get ready to rumble. Only not.
Let's see, 1963, 2003, 1963. Oh wait, yeah, we had 60. Or no, that is 63. Okay, 63, 13, 63, and this one's from 2003. Okay, so anyways, without any further ado, let's take a look back at this weekend in each history. Oh, we have Jason Myers here, who is asking, "What's your favorite Dosimeter?" Which I have no idea what that
I
is.
have no idea what that is.
Yeah,
Metal? You're smart. You tell us.
yeah. So, anyways, first off, yes, we're gonna head back to yesterday. Um, First off, we're gonna head back 60 years
Oh,
ago.
okay. It's a type of Geiger counter. It's for picking up radiation. I didn't recognize the word.
Geiger. I love Geiger. Have you seen that movie?
No, different type. It's measuring ionizing radiation
I
exposure.
know. I just. It's a
Yeah,
joke.
anyways, so first, I'm heading back 60 years ago yesterday, on April 8th of 1963. The Hole by John and Faith Hubley won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film at the 35th Academy Awards. So on yesterday's date, back in 1963, 60 years ago, The Hole from John and Faith Hubley won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short.
Was that before the Devil Worship? I say jokingly.
Let's see. The whole. I don't know. Let's see. Summary: the film uses improvised dialogue from Dizzy Gillespie and George Matthews as two construction workers at work in the bottom of a hole on a construction site, discussing the possibility of an accidental nuclear weapons attack. So the whole is a 15-minute animated film by John Hubley. This is a 1962. It was won the 1963 Academy Award. Legacy in 2013. The film was selected for preservation in the national. So my guess is this is one of those. Okay, so this came out in the early '60s. This is probably a film, um, maybe some kind of, I don't know, PSA or propaganda type film. Talking about potential nuclear fallout. That's what I'm guessing. So, but anyways, on yesterday's date, 60 years ago, um, The Hole from John and Faith Hubley won an Academy Award at the 35th Academy Awards. Anyways,
Yay.
all right. So anyways, as we move on to the next piece in Nietzsche history here, on this date 20 years ago, as soon as I pick that stuff up here. Let's see. Oh yeah, right there. All right. On this date, 20 years, on yesterday's date, rather, 20 years ago, on yesterday's date, 20 years ago, the following anime premiered on Japanese TV: Kino's Journey from A.C.G.T., Last Exile, and Scrap Princess.
I've seen Last Exile. I've actually seen that one out of this list.
I've seen all three. So, but on yesterday's date, 20 years ago, the animes Kino's Journey, Last Exile, and Scrap Princess all premiered on Japanese TV on yesterday's date, 20 years ago.
I also see that Zatch Bell was earlier in the week too. That was a popular one.
Yeah. So I was on Toonami for a while, in fact.
Yeah.
And also on yesterday's date, 10 years ago, so we get to, so I can find my cursor here. On yesterday's date back in 2013, which was 10 years ago yesterday, the WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Izod Center in East Rutherford, New Jersey. On the night saw, in the main event, John Cena defeated Mark Henry by countout. If Henry had won the match, he would have earned a championship match against John Cena. He also had on the show the tag team known as Tons of Funk, Brodus Clay, who is currently the NWA World Champion Tyrus, and Tensai, formerly known as Albert in WWE, and the Funkadactyls. Those were basically the two, Cameron and Naomi, the two girls who were with him. Naomi was the one who this past year left the WWE along with Sasha Banks, but defeated Team Rhodes Scholars of Damian Sandow and Cody Rhodes, recently returning Cody Rhodes, and the Bella Twins. Fandango, who wrestles as Dirty Dango now in Impact Wrestling, defeated Kobe Kingston by disqualification. Let's see. Sheamus versus Randy Orton went to a no contest. The winner of that match was going to face the Big Show. I'm just looking for some other. Let's see. In a 2-on-1 handicap match, Albert Del Rio with Ricardo Rodriguez in his corner defeated Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter. Zeb Coulter, aka Dutch Mantel. Let's see. Wade Barrett would defeat The Miz for the Intercontinental Championship. And the show started off with Big E Langston defeating Daniel Bryan. So that happened on this date, yesterday's date, 10 years ago. And going back to 1963, on today's date in 1963, 60 years ago today, from Marvel Comics, the 115th issue of Millie the Model Comics went on sale on this date. Of course, it was featuring, 1963. This was, of course, around a time that Al Jaffe had talked about in an interview, where this was around the time where a lot of these more like teeny bopper type comics were like Archie and stuff like that were starting. Well, by this point, they were still pretty popular. By this point, they started being popular in the late 40s there and continued, as the superhero genre had started to die off in the late 40s, with comics like this that were starting to gain popularity. Late last year. So on this 60 years ago, Millie the Model Comics, the 115th issue, went on sale on this date. Of course, it sold for 12 cents at that point. 32 pages with the late great Stan Lee editing the comic. This is a bi-monthly title.
Do you think they still have the rights to all this? Because like they keep trying to like water down and girlify modern superhero comics. You think that they should just try to bring back some of this stuff if they're trying to sell to more women?
Well, I don't
true.
know. You know something that would be a good point, except I don't know if the sensibilities of that time would
No, they would just modernize it.
Yeah, they would have to modernize it because some of the stuff that it's like some of the stuff that would have been found in these particular magazines and in some of the like romance comics at the time as well. would probably be by today's standards be considered offensive.
Yeah, well, they have the character
Everything's
Millie.
offensive these days.
Yeah. Your audience,
They have, like the character Millie the model. Well, they can bring back Millie the model. She doesn't have to be exactly the same.
Oh my god, they'd probably make her ugly. She'd have
It's they
clown
revamp.
hair and piercings
She'd be plus
everywhere.
size.
They revamp all these other characters. Why not Millie the model?
Yeah.
Millie the whale.
Oh boy. Anyways, guys, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show and enjoyed the conversation we had. Did you guys enjoy it?
Yeah.
Oh wait, actually, I
Only one thing's missing though.
Here, and that's
Only
the
one-
outros.
Yeah. Only one thing's missing though, if I may. We had a debate on the internet, and no one was name calling. It said incomplete internet argument. So
Well, Tim, I'm gonna have to call you a doofus.
Imagine that.
okay,
Imagine
I'll call Rick a jerk, and then we've fulfilled our contractual obligations.
Well, imagine.
Yes,
that,
you American.
Imagine that four adults could actually have a conversation and have differing opinions and differing views without it degrading into a slobber knocker.
Mike,
Oh, you want to see something
Mike, you're
degrade? I'll show you something degrade. Watch the Vomitorium coming up on Wednesday, because I finally saw the Mario movie, and I'm gonna be arguing with my co-host quite fervently.
It's on.
Why don't we start with metal for the outros? Then we'll go counterclockwise. So we'll go from metal to Tim to Rick, and then to me for the outro. So metal, why don't you go ahead? Do an outro. And you can share any links if you want. I forgot to let you share links earlier for the intro, but if you want to share any links as well.
Yeah. Well, obviously the main link that I need to share is always above my head right there, as you can see, is xdynamuschaos.com, which is where I put all my comics and pros and pulps and stuff like that, which actually I've been thinking very soon I might try to crowdfund a 96-page X Dynamus Chaos magazine. So stay tuned to see if I stick through with that. But also you can catch me on the Vomitorium live every Saturday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central here on YouTube or Twitch, whichever you prefer. And we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, including me yelling at my co-host about his stupid opinions of the Mario movie. That's it.
Yeah, I have been hearing that's been getting a lot of flack. I've seen some of the headlines that are out there about that, and I've heard that's not being looked at as in a real positive light.
Oh no, it's. I think widely the audience looks at it positive. I'm the one that needs to give it some share of flack on my show, but that's because I'm a Mario super fan, so I'm going to be nitpicky about it for completely different reasons.
Okay. Was it as bad as the original Mario movie?
No, I won't say that, but I would say that it's probably on par with the Super Mario Brothers Super Show's accuracy to the games. So.
I'll have to wait a week or so to watch that. I'm not going to see it till next week.
That's all I have to share.
All right. Well, I'm just showing it for everybody. All right. So with that, we'll move on to Tim then. So Tim, again, you can share any link you want for the outro.
Let me get to your channel. Where is that?
Actually, in fact, I'll just share it because
all right.
I'll just share it for you because I think I had. Yeah.
All right. So I have a book, book campaign launching on Fund My Comic, July 29th, Pacific Daytime. That's what it says on the thing. Melvin number 3, which will have a backup story with new characters, expanding my character's universe. So sign up for it today. And
Yeah.
when it launches back,
Yeah,
There's the link in the
I
chat for those of you who might want to go check it out.
I suggest people go back that. I would like to actually get paid.
Rick, one of these days, I swear.
He swears you'll get paid.
All right, is there anything else, Tim?
Yes. No, that's about it.
All right. Well, Rick, you're up.
Okay, I am Rick. I am cross comics of Rick Piper. I do comics.
Cross comics of
Did
Rick
you have a
Piper.
dyslexic
Okay.
moment? Can you try? Okay, take two. Come on, this time do it right.
Well, like I said, I'm cross comics of Rick Piper.
I thought you were cross
you
Rick
gotta
and
be
Piper
weird.
comics.
You gotta be weird sometimes to catch people's attention. Anyways, I do comic books, usually Christian, usually wholesome.
Except if you're a tree, then there's a lot of throwing trees in space.
Hey, only one tree has ever been thrown in my comics.
And that's why he's given the name Space Tree.
Yes, only one tree has been uprooted and thrown into space by my superheroes. But anyways, go check out my my website. I've done a couple minor updates, and hopefully over the next couple weeks, I'll be doing some more updates, putting up a few fan art pictures that I've had for a while, and other stuff, letting Comic Cons coming up that I'll be at, and that sort of stuff. So I guess that's it. Oh, just go check out my YouTube channel as well, and that's it. Cross
And
Comics
of
for
course,
YouTube.
we can often see the metal at times also on Rick's channel on Tuesdays during the chill out stream, and I'd pop in there every once in a while too. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, with everybody else done, I'll top it all off here. So as you guys know, this is the Mikestand. We always encourage conversation. We had a couple of good conversations going tonight. Catch me 6 nights a week, Sundays for the weekend edition, our panel show. Monday through Thursdays, the Niche Newscast, and on Fridays, our historical comics retrospect. Metal was just with me this last Friday as we were finishing up our coverage of September 1939. This Friday, we will be starting our October of 1939 coverage, in which Rick will be joining me this Friday as we will be looking at the comics that went on sale from DC Comics in October of 1939. One of which, of course, will be Detective Comics Volume 1, Number 33, which also has the Dirigible of Doom, which has the flashback story to Batman's origin. We'll be looking at that among other features. And over the next, of course, as I said, we start our October coverage. So the following week, of course, I have Terry from Mighty Geek Studios joining me on the 21st. We'll be covering Marvel then. Tim, you'll be back with me on the 28th. We'll be going over some of the stuff from Archie that went on sale in October. And then Metal's actually with me next on the 12th. Oh, I do have to make one correction to something I told you the other night, Metal. I told you that we'll be covering Fiction House that week. Actually, we're going to be covering Centaur that week. Centaur Comics, which has like amazing,
Okay.
among other.
You could have just not told me until like the week of, and I probably would have completely forgot which ones we were doing anyway, and just assumed that's what we were
I'll
always
probably
doing.
remind you when we get closer to it anyway. So, but that's just me. But anyways, so with that, everybody, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow for
Heathens.
I'm Batman.
Anyways, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow for more, for niche news coverage. And I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And we will see you all tomorrow.
Peace. I'm out.
Bye.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.